Again, I'm Christine Parr, and I'm sharing this story because I hope you guys are going to be able to use this Thanksgiving to have real conversation about family and epigenetics and what it means to be alive right now because history matters in context. What is history trying to tell us right now? There's nothing new under the sun. And so I think my life is probably exhibit A of that. So first of all, I was adopted within days of being born, but my adopted parents were told I was only a few hours old when they got me because I was a super tiny baby and they believed I was a newborn. So it took me 45 years to find out I was a survivor of a botched abortion. My birth mother was given something to drink that was supposed to kill me. In some African traditions and in the Bible, this is believed to be a sign that the child being born is going to deliver something powerful to the planet. And the ops want to destroy this potential before it can take root. So they'll wipe out all kinds of lives to make sure they kill this timeline. When it doesn't work, in the case of Moses, in the case of Yeshua, then you have people who have come to the planet to do some real shit. I know what that is for me now, but I couldn't have got there without going this specific route. So this is going to get cray. So hang on. I met my birth mother again for the first time when I was 45 years old, and I met my father a week later, and he turned out to live less than 10 minutes away from me. It is insane. When I met them and learned my birth story, I understood that some of these stories and so many of my choices in life made sense for the first time. I talk about that in another video, but here's what it really gets freaky. When we looked at the DNA results from my father, it turned out that he had the oldest documented DNA in history. It's like 80,000 years old. That means our bloodline has seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. It's seen phenomena on Earth that we've only read about in history books from people who study bones and tribes and weather patterns and speculate about what happened, what it all means. It also means that I can prove that reincarnation is real. So let's start at the beginning. When I was 17, I gave birth to my daughter and named her Alex. I didn't technically pick the name. Someone I was talking to at that time wanted to help me name her, so he suggested the full name. And I thought that it sounded eternal and beautiful. And so I agreed. 30 years later, when I met my mother, her name is also a derivative of Alex. And her father was named Alex. And her cousin, who was probably really her brother, long story, was also named Alex. So it was a cute coincidence when we first found out. And then my mom put her information into ancestry.com. And we were linked to a white man from the 1800s named, you guessed it, Alex. My mother's mother told her that her father was a full blood Choctaw preacher, and my maternal grandmother was supposedly three-fourths Choctaw. She never met her father, but she was told she had Choctaw blood. So many of us are told to shut up and stop not wanting to be Black when we hear from our grandparents about our indigenous blood, but that's the oppressor speaking through your kin people. And they are the ones who need to take several seats because the oppressor has been playing with people's identities for thousands of years. My sister called me one day and said she'd found out our great grandfather, whose name you guessed it was Alex. This would be my grandmother's great grandfather, a man she'd never met, even though they lived in the same town in Texas. My grandmother had no idea her great grandfather was named Alex, but as soon as she got grown, she went across the country to Brooklyn, New York, and met a man named, you guessed it, Alex. She then married him and named my mother a form of Alex after him. My sister had done so much research on this tree, she found out that our great grandfather Alex had a grandson named Alex, and there are six doctors and dentists in our bloodline from the 1800s from forward. So my mother is a naturopathic doctor. We have a second cousin who is a surgical oncologist, and there are dentists and doctors going all the way back to the 1800s. My son, the one who is currently being held under false charges, saved a man's life while he was in custody. He was moved to lay hands on this man, and he telepathically communicated to him and literally felt this man's heart stop boiling in his chest and return to normal. After the man was released from the infirmary a few hours later, he said they confirmed he had a massive heart attack. So my son wants to be a chiropractic surgeon, and he would make the seventh physician in our family. My sister called a few months ago because she believed she'd found out grandmother's father. He was the only man in town with that bloodline, and his name is a derivative of my other daughter. So his name is Cecil, and my other daughter's name is Cecilia. That's not her real name, but it's close enough. We started freaking out. He was a doctor. He supposedly had no children, but location, location, location. Our great grandmother lied about his identity to protect him because he was married and to protect her because she was black and would go on to marry and stay in the same town. My grandmother potentially looked past her own father for years and didn't know it. When we started looking at the women in the family, that's when things really heated up. Great 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 grandfather Alex married a mulatto woman and had several half breed children. These are their words, not mine. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Eve. When we looked into Eve's documents, her father was full blood Choctaw, and he put his daughter on the dolls rolls. When we read this, me and my sister broke down and cried. This was our proof. This is what we've been looking for. One of her children, we'll call him D, went to the feds twice, trying to get him and his family on the rolls. Now, this is where I researched and found the documents where they know his mother is Choctaw. They know she's on the dolls rolls, but they ask questions because they don't want him to know. And they don't want to let melanated people on those rolls. In fact, melanated people were threatened and abused if they spoke about their native heritage. So some of y'all acting like black people are just been inventing a pedigree. Please get your DNA tested. 23andMe is great. Look at the results and respect your elders. Don't tell these old people they don't know what they're talking about when you're the one who needs to humble yourself and do the research. You're letting known liars tell you about you and yours, and that's your first mistake. So I'm reading over this myself, and I see where they deny this man twice from getting on the dolls rolls because his mother died when he was only 14 and he didn't know her full story. And that's a part of what I want us to talk about. Listen to the older members of your family, find out about their stories because you could be repeating some of those patterns just because you don't know them. You don't know what about their stories might be useful to you, and you'll never know if you don't sit down and ask. When we look deeper into Dee's marriage with a woman we'll call Kay, we learn that she is part Cree and part Black. They have a son who is our great grandfather. Again, his name is a derivative of one of my daughter's names, and that's not the only repeated names. My sister's name, my adopted mother's name, one of my son's name, they're all in the bloodline. We had no idea about any of these people, but we have these repeating names popping up all over the place. And then when we dig deeper, great 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 grandfather Alex, that name goes all the way back to the 1700s to a Captain Alexander in England. It's off the chain. On the African side, we found that both my parents are descendants of Ramses III, the last great Ramses. He was a military genius who defended Egypt against three invasions. He was a great ancestor who passed down a real love for fighting and politics in us. We have a lot of warrior energy from this man. I was in the womb fighting for my life, so I don't make any apologies for this, but I know I was not alone and I was supported every step of the way. And that's my message to you. Don't freak out about this election. I know some of you are hurt and you feel like your neighbors let you down. And now you want bad things to happen so they can feel bad about what they've done. That's toxic. Let it go. When Joseph said what the devil meant for bad, God has turned into good, know that goes down in history as one of the most quoted lines by people of faith for a reason. When we learn the lessons of the past, we are better prepared for today and the future. Our last revelation through the DNA was learning that we are related to Mandela on both sides. Mandela went from being a prisoner who served 28 years to the president of South Africa. When Yeshua said, greater works than these will you do, that's the level he was talking about. South Africa is still plagued with violence, and I'm not going to speak on them like I know the answer. I will say the blood in me knows what we must do in this country to make sure we build the new earth we want to see, not empower a timeline with incredible suffering and pain. My great ancestor didn't use what Joseph used to fund this government project. Stay with me now. In the Bible, Joseph is the first person in recorded history to suggest and, in fact, oversee the use of taxes to fund a government program. After Joseph was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream, the one where the skinny cows eat the fat cows and the unhealthy wheat eats the healthy wheat, he started a program through the use of taxes that led to them storing their surplus so that the kingdoms could survive the 7 years of famine. This is something we are capable of doing now. This is why I incarnated to the earth at this time. The $5 revolution is a funding strategy to help us, like minded people who believe in human rights, equality, fairness, justice, the freedom to choose. We have an opportunity to gather together, pool our resources, and create the future we want to see. If just 10% of the people who voted, that's 7 million people, pool their resources into a fund for our alternative way of addressing the challenges we face, we will raise hundreds of millions of dollars in a short period of time. 7 million times $5 is 35 million. 35 million times 52 weeks is over $1.8 million in a year. What can we as intelligent, loving, compassionate people do with $1.8 million that we have raised ourselves to bring about the world we wish to see? I know we can make a serious dent in hunger. We can help fund housing. We can create a system that helps women get the care they need in dangerous pregnancies, and we can reshape the justice system. We can fund projects that really address climate change. Now, I know we can't do all that at once, but we have to start somewhere. So, my challenge to you is to share this video and leave in the comment section the number one issue we need to collectively focus on solving. I am an author and an investigative journalist. I'm going to be writing about how we make history. My great ancestor, Ramses III, was known as the Pharaoh who preserved the great works of art in Egypt. He cleaned up and restored the works that we know today because he wanted his name to echo in time along with those who came before him. We owe it to those who made so many sacrifices before us to make the biggest impact we can today, so that the greatness we have inherited is not lost. Join me in making 2025 the year we take back our power as the collective.